What if you could perform like the all-time greats? When you think of names like Jordan, Federer, Beyonce, yeah, they're record-breaking world champions. But how did they get there? Well, the elite of the elite are known not just for winning, but more importantly, they're known for their relentless work ethic. Kobe, Serena, Elon, so successful that pretty much everyone in the world knows them by just their first names. And what if I told you that that level of success is not reserved for a fortunate few? And you can take the secrets of these elite performers and use them to succeed in whatever goal that you're working towards. It might sound like it's too good to be true, but I assure you it is possible. And there is a formula that all of these great people follow to find success. A formula that if you simply follow, you will be able to rise to the same heights. Or, at the very least, you'll be ready to check off every box on your to-do list and crush all of your goals. Welcome to Change Made Easy. Changing your habits, routines, and behaviors is hard. We make it easy. I'm Paul Leviton, a coach of over 12 years who specializes in helping people just like you create positive change in their health, wealth, and relationships. Mikai Csikszentmihalyi said, "The best moments in our lives are not passive, receptive, relaxing times. The best moments usually occur when a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile." Csikszentmihalyi was referencing a phenomenon that's now commonly known as the flow state. People have talked about finding a flow state for centuries. Athletes, musicians, even firefighters. But it was Csikszentmihalyi who first coined the term after he took to his lab at the University of Chicago in the mid-80s to figure out exactly what this elusive experience was in an effort to make it more accessible for you and me. Since then, people have talked about flow as the ultimate goal state to reach. Today, you'll hear me talk about athletes, authors, musicians, and entrepreneurs who all mention the power of flow. But the important thing for you to understand is that flow is not magic. It is not mystical. And most importantly, it is not simply luck that decides if you can or cannot get into a flow state. In reality, it is a group of mindset shifts that have been scientifically proven to be able to move you closer to flow. So on today's episode, you will learn the definition of flow and a flow state, what it is and what it isn't, and why it matters for you and your goals, the 9 key elements that make up a flow experience, how you can use these elements to build flow into your life, and most importantly, listen to the end for an action step you can take today to make your life easier and unlock elite levels of commitment and motivation through the use of flow. As mentioned in the intro, Mikai Csikszentmihalyi was the revolutionary psychologist best known for coining the term flow. He was, quite literally, the father of flow. And it was the work that he did at his research lab that first definitively discovered and defined the phenomenon of flow and flow states, taking it from something that was mystical and just being spoken about in myths and anecdotes to something quantifiable that we can create and tap into on demand through a defined set of practices. Csikszentmihalyi called this the flow experience, and he broke it down into its constituent parts and laid out steps that you can take to find it in your day-to-day life. So why is that important? Well, he defined flow as a state of complete immersion in an activity, where individuals lose their sense of time and self, experiencing deep enjoyment and fulfillment. And what stands out for me is that last bit, experiencing deep enjoyment and fulfillment. That means by creating a blueprint to find flow, Csikszentmihalyi was really creating a step-by-step roadmap to find the deepest levels of enjoyment and fulfillment. And I don't know about you, but I personally believe that that is what life is all about, enjoyment and fulfillment. So I'm here for it. And then there's also the aspect of flow about time, complete immersion in an activity where individuals lose their sense of time and self. Think about the athlete who in the post-game interview gets asked, "How did you score that game-winning buzzer beater?" And they just say, "I don't know, I was just in the zone." Or a military pilot who's asked to teach new recruits how to maneuver like he does in the sky, but he says, "You just have to feel it. It just takes over me." Examples of this quote-unquote flow state have been around for literal centuries. It's gone by many names. It's the zone, it's locked in, it's hyper-focus. Artists will often talk about sitting down to paint and standing up 8 hours later feeling like no time has passed at all. So the feeling of being in flow is nothing new. While Csikszentmihalyi coined the term about half a century ago, what he was describing was a profoundly human experience that has been around probably since humans have. But his contribution is much more than just coming up with a name. The important thing is that he studied this elusive state in order to figure out what causes it. He took it from being more of a fairy tale to a set of processes that are scientific and repeatable. And in doing so, he answered some important questions about flow that have existed for as long as people have been telling stories about it. Questions like, why is it that some people find flow effortlessly and others go their entire life without ever experiencing it? And how can we tap into flow more regularly, on demand, rather than just waiting around and hoping for it to strike us like luck? Since he saw flow as the highest level of human experience, to be able to help more people achieve this was, in my opinion, one of the greatest gifts anyone could have given humanity. But to be clear, flow is not just about elite athletes or musicians or entrepreneurs. The ability to tap into flow can help everyone, including you. Coders, the people who design apps and video games and all the other stuff that happens on your phone, often speak about finding flow when they are deep in their work coding. And tapping into that state helps them get through long coding sessions, sometimes 8, 10, 12 hours or more, without feeling like it's so draining. So for you, no matter what your goal is, finding flow in your work will help you get there more effortlessly, which we know is one of the keys to success. Basically, being able to get into flow makes reaching your goals easier, and it allows you to feel better while doing it. That's a win-win. The question you may be asking now is, how do you actually get into flow and do it consistently? Well, Csikszentmihalyi solved this for us by listing out what he found to be the 9 key elements that combine to create what he calls the flow experience. And when you understand these 9 elements, you can use them as a sort of roadmap to build your own flow experiences. And now, as I go through these 9 elements, to make things even easier, I'm going to go through them in real time with a specific goal in mind. So I'm going to choose improving your fitness as a goal. So as I go through these 9 pieces, I will be telling you how I would be thinking about them with the goal of improving my fitness in my head. So the first element of the flow experience is having clear goals. An activity has to have specific objectives, and you have to know exactly what you need to do to be successful. This clarity helps maintain focus. So if the goal is improving my fitness, as I just said, already we see a problem here. And if you don't see a problem, well, that's a problem. Because improving my fitness is the opposite of a clear goal. It might have sounded clear when I first said it, but the reality is it's ambiguous. It's kind of meaningless. What is improving? What is fitness? These things mean different things to different people. Is my aim to run a marathon? Is it to get better at a marathon that I'm already running? Is it to lift more weight? Is it to play a different sport? Is it to lose weight? Is it to change my body fat? Is it to improve my heart health? Is it to swim across the English Channel? Ambiguity kills dreams. Clarity brings us closer to flow. So the second element is immediate feedback. You have to receive direct feedback on your performance. This helps you adjust your actions and stay engaged in real time. This is why sports lend themselves so well to flow experiences. What's more real-time feedback than the ball either missing the hoop or going in? You either make the shot or you don't. But either way, you aren't waiting around for an end-of-month review to find out what happened. You get real-time feedback instantaneously. So let's say I have gotten clarity. So instead of just improving my fitness, my goal that I've committed to is running a under 3-hour marathon. That's more clear going back to step 1. So now step 2 is I need feedback that's immediate to help me improve in real time. That could be hiring a running coach who's going to watch me and give me feedback in real time about my stride or something like that. Or it could be an app that tracks my runs and is in my headphones giving me audio feedback on my speed and where I'm at in relation to my goals. What I wouldn't want to do is simply run every day for a week and then take all that data at the end of the week and try to retroactively track my progress. Delayed feedback like that would not be indicative of helping me find flow. So now if you think of this outside of the space of health and you're talking about trying to find flow in work or finding flow somewhere else, you have to find ways to get that immediate feedback so you're able to continually press forward and you know in real time what's working, what's not, are you being challenged, are you moving in the right direction? The third element is called challenge skill balance. The task at hand has to be challenging while also matching your skill level. It can't be too easy or too difficult, and that keeps you engaged without overwhelming you. Csikszentmihalyi gave a great example in his book Flow, which basically stated, imagine that you're playing tennis and your opponent is a complete novice who's never played before, but you're pretty good. In that scenario, you aren't going to have fun. It's going to be too one-sided and you'll quickly lose interest, so you'll never be able to find flow like that. But also imagine that you're just pretty good and you step on the court and you see Serena Williams across from you. Even though you might get excited for a second, you'd realize that wouldn't be very fun either, because she'd be too good and you wouldn't even be able to keep up with her. So flow comes when you're challenged by someone on the same skill level as you and matched optimally. It's the Goldilocks zone. Not too much, not too little, just right. So for my goal of running a sub 3-hour marathon, I have to ask, is that the right balance? If I've never run a marathon before, jumping straight into that might be too hard, and it might be too far challenging on the challenge skill balance. But let's assume, for the sake of this, that I have been running a few marathons and my time has just been a little over 3 hours, 3 hours, 20 minutes or something like that. And I want to just shave a little bit of time off to get under that 3-hour mark. That could be the perfect sweet spot. Element 4 of a flow experience is merging of action and awareness. So in a flow state, your actions become automatic and effortless. You're fully absorbed and your consciousness merges with the activity. Michael Jordan famously said, when I'm in the zone, everything just feels like it's happening at a slower pace. I can see the defense, anticipate their moves, and it feels like I'm in total control of the game. Now, to achieve this state of a merging of action and awareness, the key is practice. I'm sure that Jordan didn't reach that state the first time he ever touched a basketball or his first time on a professional NBA court. But after putting in thousands of hours, decades of hard work, the actions, the decisions, all of what he has to do in those scenarios had become so ingrained in him that his subconscious could take over in those moments and he could literally act without thinking. And that's the definition of true mastery. So the 5th element is concentration on the task. To find flow, you have to be intensely focused on the activity. And if you do this right, distractions fade away as you immerse yourself fully. So when you're in a flow state, you don't get distracted and you don't procrastinate. You don't even realize that there is a world outside of what's happening right now. And this is why it's so important to choose your goals specifically and deliberately. Because the reality is you will never be able to find a flow state trying to do something that you don't want to do. So if my goal is to run a under 3-hour marathon, but I hate running, I'm not going to be able to concentrate my full attention on the task at hand because I don't want to do it. So some part of me, either consciously or subconsciously, will be thinking about what I get to do later, or how much I hate it, or what I'm going to do after I'm done with this goal and I move on to something else. But if it's something I'm passionate about, I'll be able to give it my full attention. And that lends itself to actually finding that flow state. The 6th element is sense of control. You feel a sense of control over your actions and the environment. And this control enhances your confidence and engagement. Going back to that Michael Jordan quote, in that state, he didn't feel like he was playing a game. He felt like he was literally controlling it, like he was the maestro conducting an entire orchestra. So beginner and novice runners might think that you just run, but advanced and expert runners know that there are varying levels of running intensity. They know how to dial up and down their effort, paying attention to their breathing, their heart rate, taking into account the terrain, the weather for the day. And all of this gives the advanced a decided edge, having more control where someone who is less involved and less practiced would not actually be able to find control in the same scenario. 7 is loss of self-consciousness. You lose awareness in yourself and your ego. You're not worried about how you're perceived or how you're performing, like an artist who disappears into their work, not to try to make great art, but just to paint, and whatever comes out, comes out. So while the goal is important, so is detachment from it. You have to realize that you are bigger than the goal, and that allows you to enjoy the process and actually have fun. Remember, all of this is about enjoyment, regardless of the outcome. So no matter what my goal around the marathon might be, I have to accept the reality that I might not get it, and that other people will do better than me, and all of the things that come along with that. So paradoxically, it's that openness to failing that will allow me to perform my best. And number 8 is one of the most talked about parts of flow, an altered sense of time. In flow, time seems to pass differently. It might feel like it's speeding up or slowing down. Sometimes 8 hours feels like a minute, or a second can feel like an hour. And while this isn't something you can just turn off and on like a whim, what you can do is search for goals that lend themselves to this feeling for you. So I mentioned earlier an artist or a coder who finds flow. So when you think about goals, think about the things that you love doing so much that time tends to stand still. So for my marathon goals, hopefully, I like getting lost in a long run. And finally, element 9 is what Csikszentmihalyi called an autoelectic experience. And that means that the activity has to be intrinsically rewarding. The experience needs to be enjoyable for its own sake, rather than for some external reward. This is why flow is only ever found when you're doing what you love. Because you can have everything else, but you're doing it for any reason but your own personal betterment, it's going to be hard, if not downright impossible, to reach that peak optimal flow state. So the goal of running a 3-hour marathon is nice, but what does that really mean to me? Why does it really matter? Am I doing it to show off to the guys at the office or to beat my old college roommate? Or am I doing it just for myself because I'll be better when I do it? So now you understand the 9 elements of flow, but how can you use those to create your own flow experiences? Well, if you're paying attention, you might have realized that of those 9 elements, they come with varying levels of control that you might have over them. So think of it like a sliding scale from completely within your conscious control to completely outside of your conscious control. So on the right unconscious side, we have things like altered state of time. Even though it's a huge part of what flow is, you can't directly control that. You can't just speed up or slow down your perception of time at will. But even though those things that you can't exactly turn off and on like a light switch, you can still see a framework that helps you move towards them. You can't make time pass slower, but you can look for activities that time does pass slower for you. What's something that you easily get sucked into? For me, it's public speaking. I get set off on a topic about psychology or motivation or personal development, and hours can go by. And it doesn't matter if I'm doing a podcast, if I'm at a party, if I'm standing in the checkout line at the grocery store. So what did I do? I started a podcast. I put myself in an environment where I could find flow. And similarly, you can look for things where you don't care about your ego. When you go to play pickup basketball at the gym, would you do it even if you were the worst guy on the court? That tells you something. That's data. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, we see that a lot of the elements are directly within your control, and you can build them into your goals to purposely make finding your flow state more probable. Having clear goals, getting immediate feedback, focusing on autoelectic experiences, and finding the correct skill challenge balance are all 100% squarely within your control. And this is why picking the right goals and the right challenges for yourself are so imperative for your future and success. And then there's the last few: sense of control, merging of action and awareness, concentration on the task. These are kind of in the middle of the spectrum. You can't 100% control them, but you do have a say. And you can improve the probability of these things happening with work outside of the task. When you train your mind with mindfulness practices, you work to improve your concentration. These are ways to help lock in these more ephemeral elements of flow. And that's why everyone from CEOs to athletes and in between all talk about meditation, mindfulness, journaling. It's not a coincidence. So how do you find your flow? You choose activities that you enjoy that you've potentially lost track of time doing in the past. These are things that you do because you want to, not because you have to. You make sure your goals are clear, challenging, and offer you immediate feedback. And you initiate practices like meditation and mindfulness to fully tap into what your mind and body are capable of. So my action step for you today is to think about what activities you found flow in the past. Chances are, when I'm talking about things like losing track of time, being optimally challenged, and other elements of flow, that might have brought something to your mind, and you might have thought, oh, that's like when I did blank. If so, again, that means something. That's data. Flow is literally the peak human experience. So if you've been fortunate enough to find it, don't gloss over that so quickly. Can you get back to that? Can you get more of that activity in your life? And if you can't think of a specific example, see if you can take something you're passionate about and see how you can move it closer to a flow experience through focusing on or altering one of the 9 key elements that we discussed today. Some people naturally tap into flow. I mentioned athletes and artists describing their experiences. Often they don't even know that this is called flow or call it such, but they still found that optimal state. So if that hasn't been you in the past, that's okay, because you still have this peak level of human experience available to you. You just have to make it happen. So use the 9 elements of flow that we discussed here, and you'll find that you're able to tap into higher levels of enjoyment while achieving your goals with lower stress, lower anxiety, and many other negative feelings starting to melt away. By locking into flow, you can pursue your goals in a way that feels good and allows you to make seemingly effortless progress. That is change made easy.